Come on. Okay. There we go. So when I feel like giving up.
Do you know a victim of domestic violence? Millions of men and women are physically and emotionally abused every day. As a nation, we could break the silence against violence. Taking a stand with me, Theresa Scott, on WMGJ, Magic 1240 AM, every Wednesday afternoon at 12:30.
Good afternoon. I'm Theresa Scott, your host today. Welcome to Taking a Stand with Theresa Scott show. I have co-host Charlotte Jones next to me, which is very delighting, and I'm very happy to have her here today. Today's show, we're going to be talking about a few things from last week, and you're going to have an opportunity to call in and ask questions, which I'm excited about to hear from you. Facebook, you're able to also put some questions out there. I'll be happy to read them off and answer your questions as well. So we're about to do this as a community, and I look forward to it. Last week, we went over the stages of grief, and I'll begin to talk about the stages of grief and also the Johari window that deals with your personality, self-awareness, and also relationships that you have with other individuals. Again, this is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so this is a very special month for a lot of individuals. With Johari window and the stages of grief, we're relating to the abuse and the violence of individuals' personality and behavior patterns. Remember, once we start able to identify patterns of behaviors within ourselves and others around us, then we're able to make better decisions based on those insight to what's going on. Also, we're going to gain insight and awareness to the symptoms, just like a cold or the flu, of the grief and ways to cope with grief as well, to eliminate what we call dysfunctional, which is unhealthy form of thinking during that process. Because if we're thinking unhealthy, we're responding unhealthy. And I will go into it a little bit, understanding the difference between emotions and feelings as well. Okay? Again, we have co-host Charlotte Jones, and she's from Cultivating Minds in Birmingham. And she also going to provide information on mental health relating to abuse and domestic violence and violence. Okay. Next week, we're going to have a co-host of Kelly Caldwell. She's an RN from Amedisys Home Health and Hospice, and we're going to be going over codependency. The question is, are you codependent? And I'm pretty sure you're saying, I am very independent. So I find that interesting, but we'll talk more about it next week. So get your questions ready for anything that you're ready to start asking questions on pertaining to what we're talking about. Did you know September 2017, there was 1,694 out of 1,873, which is a 90% of identified domestic violence programs in the United States that participated in providing information. So that includes Alabama as well in the programs that they're providing. They did a 24-hour survey. And that's a lot. That one day, can you imagine a week, a month, year, or years involved in collecting this information? That is very serious. It is time to wake up. So with that, 72,245 victims served in one day, and 40,470 adult and children victims of domestic violence found refuge in emergency shelters or transitional housing provided by local domestic violence centers. Okay, Kelly Rainbow is one. Second Chance helps with that as well. 13th Place has helped with that. So other areas here in Gaston area, Etowah, and surrounding areas are well is helping us in these areas to provide shelter and safety for not only women and children, but in some cases for elderly or disabled individuals. Based on that information, Convergence Counseling Service, which I am the owner of Convergence Counseling Service, I have the opportunity to come on the radio show each week, which I am very thankful to JC introducing me to David, and also with Fred Zachary as well, and allowing me to come on, and I really appreciate that and honor to that. But with that, what I'm trying to do is do a fundraiser for children that is in a domestic violence shelter or center by Christmas time. And you could go to my website, which I will list on the Facebook, as well as I will tell you now, it's under Convergence Counseling Services, where you are able to purchase a teddy bear for a kid that's at a domestic violence shelter or center. And you have 16 locations that's here in Alabama area that we will personally deliver. So how did I come up with this? When I was at the domestic violence shelter with my 2 sons about 5 years ago, I had purchased teddy bears for all the children there at the shelter, and I provided them with teddy bears. And I seen how therapeutic that was and how healthy that was for them. And also today, my boys still have their teddy bears, which I'm pretty sure they don't want me telling you that, but they do. And even when they went to Ohio for the summer, I had to mail them their teddy bears from here to Ohio because they've forgotten their teddy bears. So that's how important this is. So if you are able to donate a bear to a little boy or little girl of your choice out of 16 shelters or centers, please do so. Go to convergencecounselingservices.com. You may need to put in the HTTPS with the 2 little dots and the /, but we could do this. And also on Facebook, I also put that information on there for you. So we're going to move along with that. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention too, when you do go in there and donate, you are able to not only choose the bear of your choice, but you also get to personalize that bear. So you can say, you know, this is from the Smith family. We believe in your future and supporting you. You get to personalize that bear. So that's another important thing. And like I said, it's 16 shelters involved altogether. Do not forget the domestic violence shelter. Alabama Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-650-6522. With that, let's talk about the stages of grief and some of the symptoms of the grief. For those who have experienced abuse or know someone who has experienced abuse, please recognize these symptoms that I'm going to be talking about, not only for yourself, but your loved ones or your friends or your neighbors. So like I said, it's not always about us as an individual. So when we start talking about what are emotions, emotions are considered as our body response to external stimuli. That means things outside around us. That's where your emotions are playing a part. Your feelings are emotional associations and reactions to those emotions. So let me give you an example. Emotions trigger feelings, but emotions can be measured by your blood flow in your body, your brain activity, facial expression, and body language. This is where your emotions are playing a part. Your feelings can be measured by, like if you was to look for these things, based on your personal beliefs and your personal experience and your personal history. So this is why when we start talking about the cycle of grief, we're talking about emotions and feelings that's going on in a situation that may deal with abuse, domestic violence, or some form of loss, okay? And then also feelings also create behavior. So this is why when I said that we end up thinking first, we end up feeling what we're feeling, and we produce a behavior. We do not do it backwards. In other words, we don't have this outburst of a behavior, think about it, and then respond. It does not work that way. And this is why the courts and legal statuses hold everyone responsible in these areas. So this is why we really, really need to understand that. So remember when we was talking about the Johari window last week, was talking about things that you know about yourself that other people know. And then we talked about things that you know, that other people know that you don't know about yourself. Then we also talk about things that you keep hidden from others that you don't want to know, people to know. And then there's things that you don't know that you don't even know. What does that have to do with abuse, domestic violence, and violence? And I always say what? Everything. Because if I'm an abuser and I don't think I'm an abuser, even though it's a normal response from my home environment around me, this is how people respond, this is normal. But other people from the outside seeing things about me I don't see about myself, okay? Then also, there are things I didn't know that I should know, so I'm not gonna try to change it or even think or focus on it. So that's how that play a part. So you have different stages of what we talk about when we're talking about your emotions and your feelings. And we're talking about the personality of what we call the Johari window, goes into the stages of grief. The stages of grief, the first thing is shock and denial. Why is that? So let me give you an example. I'm in a relationship with a significant other. He getting upset, he's screaming or yelling, and I'm kind of like, what's going on? I'm kind of a little confused what's going on. Maybe I did something wrong. Okay, so I'm going into a denial phase that I'm not holding this individual responsible for the conflict that I'm about to lead you to. Okay. Also, then I start feeling guilty. Maybe I didn't put the dishes up the way I was supposed to. Maybe I didn't get home, or maybe I didn't do this or that. So I'm feeling a form of guilt, even though this person is responding to me very negatively. Okay, by yelling, cursing, or screaming, or throwing items at me, or hitting me. Any of these things is a form of abuse. Then I go into what is anger and bargaining. If I would have put the dishes up, or if I would have came home on time, this would not have happened. And if you notice in the first stage, I'm still not holding this person responsible. In the second stage of grief, I'm still not holding this person responsible. In the third stage of bargaining, if I would have done versus holding the other person responsible for their actions, I'm still not allowing this to take the process it needs to take. And it's still, again, I'm only not, the person who's abusing me, I'm abusing myself, and I'm allowing abuse to happen at the same time. So then we go into what we call depression, reflection, and loneliness. Again, we got this argument going on. He either hitting me or I'm hitting him back, and the kids are witnessing this, the cat, the dog, and hopefully you don't got no roaches, but they'll tell on you too. But anyway, with that, I always try to put a sense of humor in there. All this witnessing going on and all this trauma that's going on in the environment does cause grief. This is where depression, anxiety come in these home environments. The stages of grief when we're talking about that. So that was the fourth stage. The fifth stage is the upward turn, to where we want people to start reconstructing their form of thinking when it comes to what is actually going on in the home environment or with those individuals that you're dealing with. And then also, that's the sixth stage where we're working toward getting through the problems. And then also, acceptance and hope is the last stage, which is 7. So usually people, when they talk about the stages of grief, we talk about death. We talk about someone dying. That's why I didn't mention it at first. I gave an example of an abusive relationship versus death. And usually stages of grief deal with death. Someone died, we're in denial, we're in shock, we can't believe this happened. We are feeling anger, we're feeling guilt. If, I would have called them yesterday, I would have reached them before this happened. And let me reverse this too. It could have been someone that was in a domestic violence relationship that you didn't call, that you didn't get in touch with, that have lost their life. These things happen. So that can still take you through the stages of grief and dealing with the guilt and anger. Now you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with loneliness, isolate yourself. And I'm going to mention some of them symptoms of things I'm talking about in the process of all this. But where we're trying to get you to is to acceptance and understanding and where you at in them stages, and to be able to cope. That means deal with what you're dealing with in real time. Remember, awareness deals with your emotions, your mental state, and your form of thinking in what? Real time. So this is why I was mentioning at the very first week, insight and awareness team. And insight, member, deals with the past, form of thinking, behavior, and how we respond to things, okay? So let's look at some of the other things that people have in the stages of grief. They have emotional outbursts. During this time, let's say that in a domestic violence situation, I go to work that day, and it seems like everything is frustrating me. And something simple could happen, and I could just break down to a very emotional state of mind, like I'm just in shock, and people are like, oh my God, what's wrong? Well, I'm not going to tell them I'm being abused at home. I'm keeping it in and not expressing that, but any situation could trigger that. So that's why we was talking about the emotions and feelings and triggers on that area. We're dealing with the anger, the fear, searching for reasoning, panic, guilt, isolation. But like I said, what we're trying to do is establish new relationships and new entries and thoughts. So remember before when I was saying to you, do you feel detached from other people around you? This is part of that grieving process. Do you have frequent headaches? That's part of the physical symptoms. Or sudden noises shocked you. Do you have, think about any form of abuse that occur when things are movies or music or anything that kind of trigger that, and it's a form of PTSD as well, from sounds, smells, and different things that triggers that. Do you have problems falling asleep? Or do you feel numb emotionally? That goes back into the stages of grief as well. So some ways to cope with that is, one, acknowledge your feelings. Acknowledge the stage of grief you are in or experiencing. Be mindful. That means keep in mind, be in present time with what's going on around you, and acknowledge it with other people, and it also help you acknowledge it with yourself. Identify and acknowledge your emotional triggers. Man, we talk about that outburst that's going on. And also give yourself time to accept your feelings and know that you're in a grieving process when you're dealing with abuse, domestic violence, or just violence. It could be at your work, it could be in your home, at church, it doesn't matter where you're at. Okay? Get back into hobbies and support groups. We're gonna go ahead and give Charlotte some time, a few minutes to talk, and then we're gonna give you time to call in and see what you have to say.
Good afternoon, Gaston. Thank you, Theresa, for inviting me. I really do appreciate it. I am from Gaston. Don't forget, you met me in Gaston.
Yes.
I actually have an office in Birmingham, and I work in Birmingham. So, and what do we need to go from here? I am the owner of Cultivating Minds Counseling Group in Birmingham, 1229 3rd Avenue North. You can give me a call at 205-872-1991.
And how do you think, Charlotte, that as far as with mental health and what that incorporate with abuse and domestic violence?
Well, I think domestic violence, abuse, all that incorporate with force with counseling.
Yes.
Okay. We, like you said before, we are dealing with emotions. We are dealing with feelings. A lot of times we make judgments on our emotions or the way we feel. That's how we come up with the answer.
Yeah.
And that's how we conduct life day out through day in. However, we have to get in contact, and that's how I like to start out. Getting in contact with your emotions, first of all, because as humans, we do not identify with our emotions as well as we should. So I think for one, that's one way we would start out. And making that person, helping them with self-awareness, like you said. Self-aware, when we are aware of what stage we're in or where we are, or we can identify where we are, we can make better decisions, and therefore self-development will come along, as well as accepting the responsibility and not taking all the blame in for yourself, just like the scenario
and you're
that
able
you
to
gave.
shift it, or not shift it, but you're able to allow that person to be responsible for their actions,
For their
as
own
well.
actions,
And
yes.
that's why with the emotional stimuli of it, that's the outside things that's going on around us, but the inner part of our feelings generate the behavior of what we do. So yes, definitely. Okay. Callers, are y'all ready to call in? Facebook, are you ready to give me some questions? Let's do this. You can call the studio hotline at 256-549-1240. 256-549-1240.
Okay, Theresa, so with the Johari window, I just want to go over a couple of things as far as with counseling. What we can offer, like in the public. That's the public window. Anybody know about the Johari, which is a really good thing to know for anybody. It just don't have to be in counseling. That's just for anybody, because you do want to get to know thyself.
Yes.
And once you are aware of thyself, going back to making your decisions, I had one client ask me, why do I keep choosing these relationships? And it was a domestic violent relationship. And she was processing with me. She feels that it's because her grandmother left. She's so afraid. She's not going to have that sense of security anymore. But as we processed and consulted about this case here, you also made me aware of, hey, it started within the mom. And she was not raised by her mom. She was raised by her grandmother. So her missing out, that started well before the grandmother had passed.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, I'm gonna let you take that up.
With
Take
that,
over.
you know, what we look at even as professionals, and we look at human development. We look at from the time that you are conceived until you are out the womb and outside the womb, and developmentally, how are you processing during this time period? We look at your environment. We look at the relationships that you have, what we call interpersonal relationships with mother, father, caretakers. It doesn't matter who they are, but they got a great impact in your life. The teachers at the schools has a very impact. The police officers, the people at the grocery stores, all this is playing a part in our lives. So the question is, you know, why does this person continue to go back into a relationship or stay in there or pick unhealthy relationships? When we're not have insight or aware to what abuse is, then how that goes back to the Johari window. If you don't know something that you don't know, how are you going to select a different mate or choose a healthier relationship or know what's unhealthy or healthy or unhealthy if you don't know? Now everybody else around you is like, why isn't she getting it? Why isn't he getting it? Don't they? That goes back to the Johari window, where it's things that you don't know about yourself that others know. This is why I'm bringing it into effect when I'm having this conversation on the show. It's very important to connect the dots. Remember, elementary school did not just let us connect the dots for nothing. We connected from 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Some of us went from 3 to 5, and yes, we did. I was one of them, probably. Ended up crying. We both got an elephant, but I got something. I don't know what the heck it was I ended up drawing. But the teachers went back and showed you it's 1, 2, 3, and what? 4. They did not teach us to connect the dots like that in elementary for nothing. They was teaching us life process. That's why I named the business convergence. Convergence is the process of anything that we're doing in life. Okay, but the young lady that you're speaking of, you know, again, until she's able to really understand what is abuse, and then also relating that to domestic violence, and also outside of that, because it don't have to deal with her, it can deal with another family member or friend that's dealing with violence among and around her, her children, or her family. It's still all related together.
Right.
And so this is why I'm out here doing what I'm doing. Not only that have lived it, not only that I'm still continuing, like I said, in my doctorate and my thesis. I already have a master's degree and specializing in this field. I'm not doing it for nothing. And I'm not going to take my traumas and use it as a negative. I'm using it as a positive to help empower not only myself and change generations with my family and my children, but also the community. So this is very, very deep. And you know, you'll hear people say that we pay a price to get out here. We're paying a price with life experience, okay, the process. But yes, until she's able to do that, to get that information fully. And so I would say encourage her to take an anger management, domestic violence class. You know, take both of them actually.
And she actually needs counseling for us with the Johari window, because this is what I asked her, because I asked a series of questions during assessment time. And she said that her mother, which I caught on to that, whenever someone say they was raised by a grandmother, grandparent, please pay close attention. Something is there, because you begin to wonder, okay, why was not you raised by a parent? And that's letting you know that child is going to be missing something. Right. And if it lingers on into adulthood, then you got adult issues.
It does.
And this is what this adult has. So she told me, no, it didn't faze me about my mom. Once again, we can use the Johari window in the unknown.
And the grieving stages agree, because she went into denial.
Exactly.
Then she's going to bargain. Well, the reason why, and if this happened, that wouldn't happen. And why am I keep on meeting these people? Because these type of men, and I'm bargaining. I am going through it. I'm grieving emotionally and mentally. I don't care how much we smile, put on makeup and lipstick and nice outfits. Honey, on the inside, we are toned up. Some things are going on in our mental, emotional status. That's in real time. Wake up. It's time to wake up. This is nothing to play with. This is why we have a high rate of suicide. This is why we have a high rate of violence going on. We're killing each other. We're hurting each other. Even mothers killing their children, their babies, and we're beating on our babies. Like I told Charlotte, you know, the woman is the core of bringing life on this earth. Women give birth to men, boys, but, you know, of course, they're infants and they grow into men. But women give birth on life. And therefore, we are the initiator of attaching and bonding with that human life from the time that they in our womb. And if you're pregnant and you don't want a baby, you're not bonding and attaching. This baby picks up on this. This is how we, you know, we cannot diagnose an infant with depression and anxiety coming out. We look at them symptoms. They constantly got runny nose, they're constantly sick, they're constantly in the hospital, ear infections. All these things relate to something. But if you ask the pregnant mom, what happened? Oh, everything was fine. Everything great. I have that fabulous life. Okay. You have a fabulous dysfunctional life. That's what you have. Okay. But again, getting through this process, you know, of understanding these things, it'd be really, really great and healthy to have healthy relationships. I want to see each and every one of you in a healthy relationship with a healthy mate. I don't care what your preferences are. That's up to you. But a healthy one. And our children are able to experience that. And we are passing this down to the next generation. This is the problem. Generations of dysfunctionalness, unhealthiness has been going on and on and on. Okay.
And one more thing, Sigmund Freud said, when you're nursing a baby, how long does it take for that baby to cry and for you to start feeding it? That right there causes anxiety when that person knows they're not going to be fed on time. They go into survival mode, even as the newborn up to on throughout your adolescent, child, adolescent, and adult years. So you really have, counseling goes well beyond than what people realize. Mental health does. So that's another thing could linger off into.
Did your heart, and that's things that the parent may not know, that they don't know because they've been taught other values and beliefs among the family. Let that baby sit there and holler. It's good for the his or her lungs. Don't pick them up. Don't respond to them. You're gonna hold them. You're gonna spoil them. All this other beliefs in this area. And is it a form of abuse and neglect? It really is. But again, at the same time, the child's developing personality. And now, guess what? That handsome little boy that you gave birth to, I get to meet him and marry him. Wow, what am I marrying? What am I really dealing with? Who and what? That pretty little girl, the little bows and looking so cute. But as an adult, just as dysfunctional, as we say, crazy as ever. No common sense. Okay, this is what we're talking about. It's something that happened through in our developmental stages in our environment. So think about that. All right. It's been awesome talking to everyone. Again, this is Theresa Scott, your host with Taking a Stand with Theresa Scott Show. Thank you again, Charlotte, for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to seeing you next week. Huh?
I was going to say, I was going to cry. But then, you teaching me to cry.
Facebook, if you got some questions for me, leave some questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions. If you messenger me, I will not respond to messengers information. I will only respond on the Facebook. Thank you for listening in. Please provide feedback, and I look forward to seeing y'all again next week.
Tell them about Theresa on Cultivated Minds.